All right. Welcome back to another episode of Lesser Known Characters, where we get to sit down with some of our favorite people and get to know them through their musical interests.
Today, we've got, him from the Ramones. He's in Me First in the Gimme Gimmes. This is a huge honor to have you on. Ladies and gentlemen, we have CJ Ramone.
Yay.
Yeah.
Lesser Known Characters. Lesser Known Characters.
Wait, is this our first musical guest? 'Cause
Yeah,
we normally do comedians.
Yeah.
We don't.
I watched a couple of episodes
Okay,
on
cool.
YouTube.
Okay.
All right. Which ones? No,
When my manager first said to me, "Hey, I got this podcast. They might want to have you on." I was like, "What's the name? Let me look it up." I went on YouTube. I was like, "All right, they're not going to jump me with some crazy stuff. All right,
No.
I can go
Yeah,
on.
nah.
As long as you're not like smoking weed, because like if you get me on a show and I start smoking weed, like it's on.
Yeah.
I'll start letting loose with stories that'll mortify my kids.
Yeah.
So
All
I was like,
right.
as long as I don't got to smoke weed, I'm good.
Yeah,
Cool.
no, we're not like that. We don't even
right.
do. We
Yeah.
don't drink or do anything. We're boring.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
boring, brother. That's good for you, man.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
smart.
yeah. That's the first time someone that drinks has said that to us.
Yeah.
Most
yeah,
most
yeah.
people that because we do stand up comedy, so anytime
Yeah.
we say it live, people are like boo, and I'm like okay,
Yeah.
and I'm like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not booing that you drink. So.
Yeah, the people booing you probably have about 3 brain cells left from all the years of alcohol abuse. So
Yeah. for
take
sure.
it on the chin and smile.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
yeah. That's how we
This
do
is
it.
crazy because I missed the Ramones' last show at the Palladium in L.A. I'm from L.A.
Okay.
And I was in middle school maybe. I missed it for some dumb reason, and it is one of my biggest regrets.
Oh, yeah.
So having you here today for me is like full circle
Yeah.
retribution. I somehow made something happen.
Yeah. All right.
I couldn't go
all
because
right.
I live in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Arizona,
I
yeah.
grew up in Arizona, so I just couldn't make it.
I think the last show the Ramones did in Arizona probably would have been Lollapalooza.
Oh wow!
And in fact, I think we got time for a little sidebar
Of
here.
course,
Yeah,
All right,
whatever
so
you want.
if I remember right, Lollapalooza '96, Ramones retirement tour was. I think the show was in Mesa,
Yep.
and
That's where he's from.
That's where I'm
while
from.
we went on stage, it was 115 degrees on.
Oof.
We went on with our leather jackets. And play the set, but during the set, a huge sandstorm blew in
Yeah.
and lifted up the covering on the stage, and we had to cut our set short. It's the only time that ever happened to us.
Yeah, that's called
Only
a
time.
haboob.
A haboob.
Yeah, it's like it basically like it's a massive amount of dirt that just and it rolls over like pretty quick, but it comes from like the south and just storms through.
Yeah.
The Phoenix area.
Yeah. Wow. It was wild.
It only happens in the
Right.
summertime.
So, yeah, it was-
you said 115. That was the summertime. So
Yep.
in the leather jackets.
In the leather
I
jackets.
couldn't imagine.
God.
We wore those things every show for the first like 5 or 10 songs.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that day, it wasn't a whole lot of gigs when I was like, man, I can't wait to get this off. But that day I was like, man, we can't get to that song quick enough.
Damn.
Ooh.
So only half the set.
Yeah, not
About.
even half.
So you did
Like
about 50 songs. Okay.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. 2-minute songs, you fit a lot in an
You
hour
know,
and a half.
real quick, did you do any sort of like prep for those tours? Were you running? Were you doing like shit under heat
know.
lamps or?
Well, I got into the Ramones right out of the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
Literally
okay.
5 weeks out of the Marine Corps, I did my first show at the Ramones.
Wow, yeah.
So I was pretty fit back then. I was
Okay.
always pretty
Oh,
fit.
got it.
You were
So
ready to go.
But we used to rehearse pretty intensely before every tour.
Yeah.
But if you go back and watch videos, like I watch myself now and I'm like, damn, I was getting down back then.
Insane. Yeah.
But it was pure adrenaline, man. It
Yeah,
was
because
pure
we're in a
adrenaline.
hardcore band, and like I'm like praying before every song. Don't let me fuck this up. I'm like trying to, you know.
Oh yeah.
But you know.
Yeah.
So. But
Yeah, it's the hardcore especially. You gotta be kind of physically fit just
Yeah.
to play the music. Never mind put on the show.
Yeah.
Never mind jump around and keep the audience into it and everything else.
Yeah.
Just playing physically. My biggest thing when I got into the band was I had never played with a pick before. And if you know about the Ramones, it's all down picking,
down
right?
picking,
No
yeah.
alternate picking, all down picking. I had never done it before. So I was sitting in my room practicing the songs at first for the auditions, and my forearm would cramp up after 3 or 4 songs, and I was like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Like, I was trying to just muscle through it. And then at one point I was sitting down on the bed with my bass playing to the live tape, and I like slid the bass down a little bit, and I noticed when I straightened out my arm a little, I was like, oh, it's a little bit easier. So I stood up and I dropped the bass way down so my elbow was straight.
Instead of just playing
and
it up
was
a little higher.
all wrist.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, that's the trick. It's all wrist. You got to isolate your elbow, get it out of there, and it's all wrist. And that's why I wore my bass so low, because that.
And it looks cool as
It looks
fuck.
it's a cool look.
And I got
very cool look.
I got arms like a gorilla on top of it,
Yeah.
so my bass was really low. You know, it was like exaggerated low. But that's what allowed me to be able to play. You know, we played 35 songs a night, and
Bruh.
you know,
Oh my god.
easily 2 to 3 beats per minute faster than the records
yeah.
were.
Oh,
We
I've
were
heard
playing
it,
at
for sure.
crazy speed, right? All down picking. That's how I did it, and it was strictly just by accident, just playing around with how low the bass was.
Wow. Man.
Yeah.
Happy accidents.
Because, brother, I had no instruction. I didn't even know how to pick. The first audition I went to, I was playing with a pick. I didn't know how to do it. I was just like, just muscling through it, you
Yeah.
know? And afterwards, Johnny was like, okay, thanks for coming down. You know, sounded good, whatever.
Yeah.
And they called me back a couple of times, and each time I had to learn more songs. But once I got past that 5 songs, I couldn't just tough it out.
Yeah.
I had to change something up, and straightening out my arm was the way to do it.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Refine Recovery.
Yes, Refine Recovery is a detox residential substance abuse treatment center.
I'm really excited to have them as a sponsor. As somebody who just hit 2 years off alcohol, I just think it's great that there's people out there really helping people be their best selves. And yeah.
Yeah, and we love seeing people get help. I actually used to teach anger management classes there, and they have a ton of great classes. And so those sessions were very important to me, because not only was I helping others, but I felt like I was helping myself as well. So check out Refine Recovery, refinerecovery.com for more information. They do take employer or private insurance as well. Also, client to staff ratio is within great numbers, because I'm not a mathematician, but I know you'll be fine. They'll take great care of you. But check out for more information, refinerecovery.com.
Yeah. Man.
Ooh.
That's crazy. I'm tired just listening.
I know,
to
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's get
Come
into
on.
the list of questions.
Let's get it.
So, yeah, Joel and I don't know your answers, so we like to be surprised. So I'll ask the question, and if you forget, Mike does have your answers. So I'll
All right.
ask it, you say it, and then we'll kind of we'll talk about it. you
Good,
know?
let's go.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so first album you ever bought.
Black Sabbath, Paranoid.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, dude.
First album I ever bought my own money, Black Sabbath, Paranoid.
Own
Fuck
money,
yeah.
own money,
Yes,
right
dude,
there.
I love
Own-
the
yep.
distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My own money, yep.
Man.
That is so that intro, and like it's it's a warm intro, but like just so wild
Yeah.
to me. Like
Yep.
the tone is warm.
Yep.
But the energy is like, whoa.
Yeah.
That feeling.
Yep.
I mean, and what year did that come out? Like so.
Paranoid is probably 69 or 70 maybe.
Around there, roughly.
Yeah, it's got to be 69, 70.
Yeah.
Because I think their first album, Black Sabbath, came out in 1969, because that's the first year Led Zeppelin's first album too.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think they put out, so it's probably 70. But Black Sabbath put out 2 albums a year for like the first 3 years.
Man.
Imagine that back then.
Oh my God.
That-
Right? Now, these days, a band puts an album out, tours for 3 years on it, and then puts out another album.
Yeah.
Back then, bands would just pump them
just
out.
pump 'em
They were
out.
so
Just pump 'em out.
inspired,
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
going.
Yeah.
So
Because
what-
it was all new.
What about that Black Sabbath album specifically that caught your attention?
So I grew up around a lot of different styles of music. My mom and dad were into everything from like classical music, a lot of country music. I grew up with a lot of country music. And then the classic rock bands, the Doors and Hendrix and
Yeah.
Janis Joplin, all that stuff. So I came from a really varied background when it comes to music. But when I heard Black Sabbath for the first time, I was really into horror films from when I was a kid,
same.
right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to this. Back in the day, you'd walk into a record store and see an album cover and be like, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? The artwork was just, and the Paranoid album cover just looks so cool to me. It's like that
Yeah.
blurred picture and stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually had an older cousin who turned me on to them. That's how I learned about Sabbath. But he was a mean prick. You know, from when I was a little kid, like he would just torture me, do all kinds of crazy stuff. But he's the one at hanging out with him was the first time I heard Black Sabbath. That was the first time I heard them. And it sounded like the soundtrack to a horror movie, and I was just like,
yeah.
"Oh my God, that is the best!" And it was heavy, and the guitar sounds were just, they tuned down, and it's just like some
Down tuning, yeah.
His voice,
Iron
too.
Man, that
Yeah.
whole thing. I was like, it was the best thing I ever heard.
Wow.
Everything that I listened to before suddenly became inconsequential. It was like
Yeah.
I heard Black Sabbath, and I left all of that stuff behind for a very long time.
Wow.
I got back to listening to country and all that stuff later on in my life, but once I heard Black Sabbath, that was
You're like,
it.
I need to hang out here for a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Geezer Butler really was the guy who made me want to play bass. Listening to the
course.
bass runs and the grooves that he laid down, like fat grooves, I was like, I have to do that. I gotta
Yeah.
learn how to do that,
Yeah.
And so that album was life-changing for me. Really, like, to me, that's when I really separated myself from my parents. That was the
There you go.
album
It
I
gave
put
you
it
your
on, and
own
my father was
identity.
like, "What the hell are you listening to?" I was like, "Yeah."
You're like, I'm different, Dad.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
then, what? Okay, so following into the next question, what was the anthem of your youth?
Blitzkrieg Bop.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I gotta say,
I gotta say, same.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Blitzkrieg Bop.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I had heard the Ramones early on because I'm originally from Queens.
Yeah.
Originally
Okay.
from Hollis, Queens, right? Hollis, Queens.
You
Jamaica.
Run DMC, right? Shout
Run
out to
DMC.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Oh, yeah.
brother. Absolutely.
That's where they say hip hop started. Was Queen.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. I had heard the Ramones hanging out with my cousin, but never really kind of linked up with it. I was where I lived on Long Island. I lived out in the boonies. I lived like in the boonies, right? We lived in a wooded area. There was like acres and acres of woodlands, right? But there was this old burnt down Victorian mansion back there that I
Wow.
used to go and just explore and like find coins from like the 1800s and just like
Yeah.
all this cool stuff. So I used to go back there in the woods by myself. One day I go back there, and here's this smoking hot blonde in a tube top and Daisy Dukes hanging out smoking cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Her and another girl who was also good looking, and I was like, wow. I was like, I just stepped into the Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I walked over and I started talking with them, and the girl was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Why don't you come over to my house?" I'm like 12 years old, right?
Wow.
I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll come over to your house, So I follow her to her house. She lived miles away from me. We were walking for like 45 minutes, right? I'm like, "Man, I hope I can find my way home." Like, literally, I'm a kid, So we get to her house. We go in her house. She's like, "Oh, my mom ain't home. Let's go to my room." We go downstairs to her basement room. We go in, I sit down on a bed, and she picks up a record, and she puts it on and drops the needle on, and Blitzkrieg Bop comes on.
man, dude.
And brother, and she turns around with the album cover, and she goes, "Have you ever heard of the Ramones?" And I was like, I go, "No." And Blitzkrieg
How
Bop
fucking
plays.
crazy is this?
Right? Brother, but this is the best thing. She sits down on the bed next to me, sprinkles some weed on it, starts rolling up a joint, right? Gets me high and jumps on me and starts kissing me.
Oh my God.
First time I ever kissed a girl, first time I ever smoked weed, first time I ever listened to the Ramones. All in one day.
Wow.
All in one- So when I got into the Ramones, I was always dying to tell Johnny Ramone that story. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So finally one day, we were talking about bands and blah, blah, and this and that. And I said, "John, I got to tell you this story. You're going to love it." And I told him the story. He was like, "I see why you're a Ramones fan."
Dude.
But like that's the first time I ever
mean-
really listened to the Ramones, and it was so I was high. I was fucking 12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't even know what anything did. You know what I mean?
yeah.
She smoked me out and then jumped on me. I was like, wow. I
That's
went
like
home
a
like,
movie.
In a Victorian
Oh.
mansion.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh no,
Oh,
well
no,
this
you
was
went to
at
her
her
house.
house.
That's right. That's
yeah, they
right.
went back to her house.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, her name's Christine Block, and years later, I actually ran into her after I was in the Ramones.
Oh my God, dude.
And I said to her, I said, do you know that you're the one that turned me on to the Ramones? And she was like, I was just trying to turn you on to a cool band. I was like,
Wow.
well, I told her, I
Wow.
said, hey, I definitely owe you for that because
Man.
that changed my life.
That
That's
is
so
the
crazy.
best. That is the best answer I've ever heard for our question. The anthem of your youth.
I gotta tell you-
that is the wildest.
Yeah.
That I'm just like I don't have words.
It's a It's a movie.
I don't
Sid.
even want to ask
Yeah.
another question because I'm like, okay, that,
I gotta say too. I've been on record saying this multiple times, but the Ramones are the reason I'm still playing music to this day because I think it was KKK Took My Baby Away. I played drums, but it was like
Right.
da na 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 da. I was like,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
If somebody had given me a Rush CD, I would have
Yeah.
said, nope,
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
do it.
yeah, no
Yep.
way.
So I mean, it's in hearing that and your life, and then you ending up in the band is
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah,
about
you-
a full circle.
But that's that's kind of what the Ramones were when they came out, was they were kind of like pushback against like all the music that was popular.
Yeah.
Because at that point it was mostly progressive stuff, and I loved all those early progressive bands, Yes and the Allman Brothers and all that type of stuff. I really liked all that stuff, but it didn't really make me want to play. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
good to listen to, but it was like listening to the gods. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Those guys were such high-end players and stuff.
So
you know?
high, yes.
But the Ramones came out, and kids were like, I think I can do that.
Yeah, life-changing,
And that's
man.
why they inspired so many bands, because it made average kids understand, like, music does not belong to the high-end players. It belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
It belongs to
Democratize it,
all of
yeah.
us, you know what I mean? And that whole idea created a community of people who kind of grouped around that idea. That
Art,
idea of we can do it
everything.
ourselves. Exactly.
Fashion,
Exactly.
music, yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly how it happened. They brought music back to regular people.
Yeah.
Because if you sit down, like you said, you sit down and listen to Jimi Hendrix or like any of the real high end players, like you just be like, damn, I love that stuff, but I don't know where that comes from.
I can't play
I don't know
one
where that comes
Untouchable,
from.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be an alien to do that.
Yeah.
But you listen to the Ramones and you go, I can fucking do that
Yeah.
and do it to death.
I got
You
a
know?
drum set for Christmas when I was 14, and within 6 months we were playing Blitzkrieg Bob at my high school talent show, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, probably completely wrong, but out there, man, it was awesome.
It was
You
it was within reach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was the cool thing
made it
about that. is
touchable.
Yeah.
Very touchable.
And it's a it's an idea that lives on now. Like anywhere you go, I could tell you, I've played in Havana, Cuba. I played in Moscow, Russia. I played in Belém, Brazil. I played in some of the smallest little backwater towns all over the world. Every town you go to has a hardcore and punk scene.
Yeah.
Every little town you go
Wow.
to.
Dude,
and
it's
it's
beautiful,
because
man.
that is the music of the average people, of the everyday people.
yeah.
And that's that's what the Ramones gave to music. That was their big
I went to
contribution.
Burlington, Vermont. They had it there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right. So next, wow, that
That
answer
shit
was
got my
insane.
heart
I know.
pounding right now.
Hey,
It's like,
we're gonna go deep. I'm
Yeah,
telling
that's
you.
Good,
fine.
good. I
That's
can't
We're
wait.
gonna go deep.
Okay, your favorite song to play in the car?
Favorite song to play in the car. Let's see. Probably the Clash "Bank Robber."
oh, dude, that's why I got this tattoo. I got a
My
tattoo of
favorite
it.
song from the Clash.
Dude.
Absolutely,
Really?
my
Yeah.
favorite song. Yep. And
Just like-
I never really dug politics and music before I went there and I experienced what the kids there went through. Like I didn't understand why the Pistols were singing about anarchy and the Clash were, like White Riot and
Yeah.
Clash City Rockers. I didn't get it. I was like, I'm really not into politics. I don't necessarily want to hear it music until I went to England. And when I went there, I didn't go to see fucking Big Ben and go to see the Queen's Castle. I went there to hang out with the kids and find out what their scene was about. Cool. That's what I wanted to see in England. So when I started hanging around with the kids and listening to their stories about how they lived and how oppressive society was there, like I thought like jolly old England, not like that at all.
Yeah.
Like the working class kids, the kids on the lower end, they knew they were never getting out of their town. Man. They knew they didn't have much of a future, and that's why the Clash and the Damned didn't. Not the Damned so much, but the Clash and the Pistols were shouting about what they were because it was so oppressed. I mean, real class warfare shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I understood. Once I went there, I understood, and I learned. Keep your mouth shut when you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
As you're saying this, I had no idea.
Our perception of what life is in England is very, very distorted. It's way better now. I mean, it's loosened up a lot. But when I went there in the 80s, well, I went there in 1989. It was different and it was oppressive, and those kids let me know directly. And then I could pump my fist to White Riot and anarchy in the UK and God Save the Queen because I understood what their movement was about.
Man.
Yeah, see, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just like, okay, we're just gonna do a rebellious thing and make it. I thought it was just like a sound. I didn't. Not that I didn't think it was real, but it's just like I was like, oh, they're just saying this. You know what I mean?
You know what I compare it to? This is what I compare it to. California. Southern California, especially punk rock bands, had a big thing about fuck authority.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Being from New York, you know, in the 70s, 80s, the only way you learned about other scenes was through fanzines, right? That was it. You know what I mean? Or if you had a friend that went to California, came back with a Black Flag record or a Minutemen record or something, to be like, fuck yeah, you know? I didn't really get why the kids there were so anti-authority, right? New York scene really wasn't like that. It just wasn't like that.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of that in our music. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I guess when I think about it, you don't really hear.
You think
No.
it's small living quarters? It's because like your mom's in the next fucking. You have to get along in order to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah, I don't know.
know.
But when I got out there, when I got out to California, first time I was there, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. I was in the Marine Corps. I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. I took a Greyhound up to see my sister in L.A., right? Me and my sister get up the morning after I get there. We're walking over to get a cup of coffee. We cross the street, cop car comes wheeling up, skidding. I'm thinking like the store's getting robbed, so I push my sister up the wall. I stand back, expecting the cops to go by. They stop in front of me. They're like, let me see your ID. I was like, okay. So I take out my military ID. He's like, put out the cigarette. I go, okay, put out the cigarette. What's up? They're like, we're writing you a summons. I was like, what are you writing me a summons for?
Yeah.
He goes, you were jaywalking. I was like, I'm from New York. What the fuck is jaywalking?
Yeah.
We don't have jaywalking in New York. That don't exist, right? In New York, if you're walking down the street, smoking a joint, drinking a beer, and a cop sees you, he'll kick you in the ass and tell you, get off my beat. And that's your biggest interaction with cops in New York. They got way bigger things to worry about.
Yeah.
But it occurred to me why all these skater kids and why all these punk kids are screaming and yelling about fuck authority and fuck the cops. Because they get fucked with on a regular basis by the police in their fucking city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those two things together, you know what I mean? Like I got it. Like that's, you got to know what the scene in the city is about before you judge the lyrics and what they're singing about. You have to know what their daily struggles are before you have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
And I learned that in LA and I learned it in England.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Damn, yeah.
I remember I went and saw Rollins speak one time, one of the many times I've seen him speak, and he always says whenever he travels, he never does anything touristy. He wants to know the neighborhoods. He wants to know who these people are that are like living here in a way that like most people aren't. You know what I mean? Like he's not trying to see like, oh, this building. He wants to know the people.
Yep.
Which is like hearing that, I'm like, man, it's so important.
Yeah,
you know,
it totally is. It really is, and especially when you're a musician, or even if you're a writer or a painter, whatever medium you work in, you have to have an intimate understanding of the things that you see and the places that you go before you can create something from that experience. Like you really got to experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, like I said, when I used to go on tour, I never went and did the touristy stuff. Like the rest of the band sometimes would jump in the van on the day off and go out and do touristy stuff. I'd find the nearest bar or the nearest bunch of kids, and I'd just walk up to them and be like, hey, just take me out to wherever you hang out.
Yeah.
You know, like I just want to, you know, get a feel for get a lay of the land, right? I had so much more better experiences doing that than I would have if I would have been sitting in the van looking out the window going, oh, the Eiffel Tower, oh, the Queen's Castle. All that stuff is great, and I love history, and I love architecture, and I love art, and I love all that stuff. But until you really get to know the people and how they live and what they're really about, all of that stuff kind of falls by the wayside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn, awesome.
This is a great episode so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, yeah, this is probably a tough question, but I'm excited for your answer. Best live music you've ever seen?
Judas Priest and Iron Maiden.
Dang,
Priest
he
and
was
the Beast
so
Tour.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. 1980
With the-
Madison Square Garden.
Whoa.
It was
Fuck yeah.
unbelievable. Really, really. I definitely, I've never pretended to be like a punk rock purist or a hardcore purist. I've always said I love heavy metal. I always have.
Yep.
In that time period, when those bands were just kind of like peaking, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, you had the Scorpions in there, and that's pre-Metallica. But you had all those types of bands. That tour, that show in particular, my heart was in my throat the whole time. It was so unbelievably powerful.
How old were you?
1980, I was 16.
Man.
I think. 16, hon. I'm born in 65. 15. Sorry. I got a late birthday.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I mean that, and you gotta look at it this way too, right? That was the most important show in my life because of when it happened, right? That's when I was most deeply ingrained in the scene happening right there, and that's why I was just like, I was all in. I was just
It's
all
like you're
in.
sunken into it.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
And I've
molded
seen
into it.
unbelievably great concerts after that, and all different types of bands, CBGB's, matinees. Like, I've seen some really great shows, but the show that made the biggest impact on me in my life because of the time period and how my brain operated then, that tour was absolutely it.
Those two bands together, like you said, 1980. That's
Yeah.
what?
So Judas Priest was on Screaming for Vengeance, and I think it was, Screaming for Vengeance, and Iron Maiden was on Number of the Beast.
Damn.
It's like those albums for both those bands are like
in the garden.
pinnacle in Madison Square.
Gosh,
And
yeah.
if you're from New York, Madison Square Garden is Mecca for us.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a New York musician, there's no place in the world that you want to play more than at Madison Square Garden. And I saw so many great acts there, but that is the one show.
That's the
Wow,
one
incredible.
show.
Yeah.
I wonder if
That's the
there's
one.
video of that. We got to look that
Yeah,
up.
we got to look that
Oh,
up.
yeah. I'm sure there's got to be a ton of it.
Something, yeah, on YouTube.
That's
CJ
different.
losing his mind. At
I know,
16,
right?
Yeah.
Did you buy those tickets, or your parents bought those tickets?
No, I bought those tickets.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Do you remember if it was? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I had good hustle when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like my dad was the type of person, like, I was like, Dad, I want to get a car. I need a car. He'd be like, all right, get a job. I was like, well, I go to school. Dad, I'm in high school. Yeah, get a job. So literally, like, I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd go work in a mail collating factory until 7 o'clock, go to school, and then go back and work there
Damn.
after school, right? Plus, on weekends, I would push carts at the Wallbound Shopping Center, grocery carts.
Yeah.
I'd collect the carts, and I did anything I could to make $1.
Hell yeah.
Anything I could to make $1 because I wanted to have cool stuff. So at 17 years old, I was driving a 69 Chevelle. You know what I mean?
I was lazy,
awesome.
dog. I was lazy. Hearing
And
this,
in
I'm
New
like,
York
I was-
too, right?
I had an Ampeg and a Fender P-Bass from when I very first started playing because I just got out. I had good hustle. I wanted
wanted
things,
it.
and I just got out and made it happen. Eventually, I don't know if I should tell this. The kid, no, okay, all right, yeah. So I found all kinds of.
Off camera.
That's my wife. That's
yeah,
why
yeah.
she's giving me the nod.
Yeah.
But I found all kinds of ways to make money before I got out of high school, and I always footed my own bill. I really always tried to do that.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
But I got to tell you, I passed that on to my kids too. Like my son, my oldest one, he's got good hustle, full-time job, during COVID, he kept working when other people were like, "Oh, I can't come to work." He was like, "I'll take more hours." Like my son's got the hustle that I had, you know.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
I didn't find hustle till years later.
Yeah.
Like I was panhandling on the street outside of Ross, just asking people. I'm trying to get this DRI record.
Well, we have it for stuff that like we want now.
Yeah,
like,
we want-
the
yeah.
things we care about.
Yeah,
you
now,
know,
but
I
as a
think
kid,
it's-
what are you talking about when he's a kid?
Yeah,
As
yeah.
a kid, I was like,
I was
have
a
a
kid.
dollar.
I was a kid, like high school kid, and
Yeah.
I worked every crappy job. I worked in a chemical factory. I worked landscaping. I did everything. And when I graduated high school, my first job was working in a military aircraft factory. So like literally, I went like hardcore blue collar, boom, right out of high school.
Just right into it.
Yeah, right into it. Because I thought that was going to be it. You know,
Yeah.
I was playing in bands and stuff, but
You were just expecting to be working class.
yeah, well, I thought of it this way. I'm very pragmatic. I was like, if I'm not making a living doing money by the time I'm 21, I got to go find something else to do. So I was working in the factory, making good money. The band that I played in was one of the bigger bands in my area, so I was making $400 to $500 in a weekend with the band, plus making $700-800 a week in the factory. I was living good, you
Yeah,
know?
that's baller
And I
back
was
then.
still living at my mom and dad's, although my dad, would try, he, $50 a week to keep my room
man.
and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right? But I was living pretty good.
Cool.
But the aerospace industry just collapsed on Long Island. They pulled out, and the whole economy on Long Island collapsed, right?
Yeah.
So then at that point, I was 21 years old. I was working as a landscaper, busting my ass to make money, and a job I knew I couldn't do for life. And I woke up one morning, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. I got up. I went down to the Marine Corps recruiter and enlisted. Boop.
Damn.
I was like, I'm getting out of this town. I don't care what I got to do. And I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
Damn.
Yeah, I was a hard charger always.
Yeah,
I was
you
always
went
looking
for it, yeah.
because I knew I wanted out of my town.
Yeah.
you know. And I got friends that have grown up, and I'm an old man, and I got friends that literally worked the same job out of high school,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying anything bad about it. Worked the same job, never did a whole lot in their lives, never traveled a lot, nothing. They got hobbies and all of that, but I knew I was not that guy.
Yeah.
I was not that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I wanted fucking out. I wanted to see the world. And if I couldn't do it with music, because when the economy collapsed, now people got less money to spend. There's fewer people going out to the clubs. You know what I mean? So the band gigs start to dissipate a little bit, and it was just all going south quick. And I was like, I'm fucking out of here. I went to the Marine Corps. And funny enough, I go into the Marines a year and a half, probably a year and 3/4 into my enlistment. I get the audition for the Ramones.
Damn. Hey ho, let's go.
Hey, listen, this is no bullshit. I found out that I got the gig with the Ramones sitting in jail with the Marine Corps because I'd become a deserter while I was auditioning for the Ramones. That's no bullshit. Yeah.
Wow.
That's public record.
I gotta get out of here.
Bro, I haven't done anything like that.
Shut
I was
up,
kidding, I was kidding. Okay. Not a lot of people do this, but I wonder if you do. Your go-to karaoke song.
Creedence Clearwater Revival,
Yeah.
Hell
Fortunate
yeah.
Son.
Great
Yes,
song, man.
great
one.
song.
And everybody gets up for it.
Oh, I
Oh,
bet.
of course.
I can't sing it for worth a shit, but it's such a great song. He's got a really high voice.
That's
so.
the beauty of karaoke, though, is that
Yeah.
none of us can sing.
Yep.
That's why we do karaoke.
Yep. The worse you sing, the better you are.
The better, it's all about the performance in
Yep.
karaoke, and if the song gets everyone hyped, that's like the biggest things. It's
Yeah.
always this song is it's just you just hear it everywhere, and you're
Yeah.
always like
It's been
it's
in every Vietnam documentary.
Oh yeah, every single one.
every single one. Also, and anytime you hear it, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna let this ride out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
CCR, great band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. They're one of my favorite bands of all time.
Really?
Like I said, I come from a really varied background. CCR, I liked from when I was a kid. There's just something about them. And it's funny enough, where my wife and I live now, up in the East Bay, that's where those guys are from.
Oh, I didn't think they were from the East Bay.
Yeah, no,
I
because
thought
they're like, born on the bayou.
Yeah,
I thought they were from the
And
South.
you're like, ain't they from Louisiana or something? Fuck no, they're from Northern California.
Damn.
Yeah.
How's it feel being a New Yorker in California?
Well, at this point in my life, good, man. I'm out there because the weather's nice. All my old injuries don't hurt me like they do back in New York. My friends back home are like, "Oh, come on, when you're moving back, we know you miss it." I'm like, "Yeah, I miss it, but I'd rather live out there and visit here than live here and visit out there."
Oh,
you know?
got it, yeah.
And my wife is from out there. When we first got married, she lived in New York for 11 years, hon. 11 years. She lived out there 11 years and then was like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I got to go home. And our two oldest were done with high school and everything. So I was like, all right, I could go live in California. I was stationed out, in San Diego at Camp Pendleton.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like culture shock. Plus, I spent so much time out here with the band. Didn't take much to get adjusted to it.
Yeah.
The weather's nice.
Oh,
The weather's
yeah.
nice.
I gotta
Can't
tell
beat
you,
the weather.
man.
I didn't grow up I grew up in Arizona, so I don't know.
If
winter
I don't
weather.
have to shovel snow, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah,
That's literally
I don't
what
even know
everyone
what that's
says.
like. I'm from LA, so if it drops below 70, I'm freezing.
Oh,
we're
shoveling snow sucks.
Oh, I bet.
Which is probably another hustle.
Another job you had. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Dude, hurricanes, we would have hurricanes on Long Island. Trees would go down everywhere. Me and my buddy would throw our chainsaws in the back of the truck, drive around people's houses, trees on them. We'd be like, $400, we'll take it off. Yeah, oh, great. Here.
Damn, heck yeah.
Hustle. Always hustling.
Dude, love it.
Can I go back to? Can I redo my childhood?
No, it's too late. You can move forward though.
All right, I'll move
Yeah.
over. You know what? I think I'm gonna stop comedy and just start cutting down trees.
Okay.
I think
Can make some money there,
Yeah.
brother.
I'll make some money with that. Okay. One of my favorite question, Joel's least favorite question. Song you play when feeling sad.
Oh, that's Tom Waits, Fishing Bird.
I don't know much about Tom Waits.
Tom Waits, he went through a lot of different time periods. I don't like all the music he made all of the years. Some of it was a little bit he was going too hard for like an old-timey feel. But I really like the stuff he made from like Bone Machine on. From Bone Machine on, he went through it. Bone Machine was like a whole new sound for him. He did Bone Machine, Mule Variations, and he's done a couple since then. I really like those albums because he really changed it up a lot. He brought different styles in. Before, he was really going for the old-timey thing, and he did it great. My favorite song from him is Innocent When You Dream, hun. What album is that? Is that Frank's Wild Years? I don't know.
We can look it up, maybe.
But it's from one of the older albums that he did.
Yeah.
It's my favorite song by him.
Okay.
But the stuff he did after Bone Machine, man, it's just so good.
What did you say, Mike? Frank's Wild Years.
Yeah,
Years,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cinematic. It's got such a vibe.
You
to
know
it.
Tom
Yeah.
Waits?
A little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know any.
I mean, it sounds.
This is my
there's
first time
like
hearing
pain
Tom
in the
Waits.
voice
Tom
too. You
Waits.
know,
Yeah.
Is it a lot of sad music he
Yeah,
writes?
super
Really?
melancholy, and he writes about some dark shit too. One thing he writes is about a little girl being murdered by a serial killer, and what she's saying to her mom as she's dying.
Oh,
Like
my
the
God. Yeah,
craziest-
yeah.
This guy goes
I
dark.
don't need to hear all that.
He goes dark and deep. You know what I mean? But he's really good. I mean, I just like him as a songwriter. And he's one of the few people who have maintained that kind of veil of secrecy of who he really
That
is.
mystique.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
He's done some
Yeah.
acting as well, right? He
Yeah,
was in
oh, yeah.
Dracula.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yep. He's been in a couple movies over the years, and he's really, really loved, like in the music community and in the film community also. But yeah, he's just one of those guys, man. He really knows how to like the lyrics he writes. He really knows how to like jerk a tear out of your eye for
Yeah.
sure.
Wow.
You know?
Does that pull you out of sadness?
Well,
Or-
no, to me, I don't get sad with the song. I'm just amazed by.
Oh, you're amazed by it.
Yeah,
wow.
by the emotion he
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get out of. You know,
Because you're like, yeah, how does someone get there?
but I don't listen to like sad music or depressing music and get depressed. I listen to it and go, damn, man, that motherfucker can write some lyrics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like in my head, that's how I think. I don't sit there and go, oh.
See, I do. I need to
gotta
maybe
cry in
change
my
it.
beer. I don't cry in my beer.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I drink the hell out of them, but I don't cry in them. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I'm just not that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But but he's a dude that really his shows, his live shows are more like a vaudeville show
Yeah.
than they are like a concert. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He does all kinds of wild stuff. He's a really interesting artist. You have to kind of be you really have to be like really open-minded if you don't listen to anything in that style to listen to him. But I always tell everybody from Bone Machine on, you listen to that, you'll have an easier time relating to it than the stuff before Bone Machine.
Yeah, it does sound like an acquired taste.
Yeah.
As I'm like,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
he was,
Yep.
as Mike was playing it, I was like, oh,
Yep.
this is interesting.
Very
different.
respected artist, though.
Oh, yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
of people
Yep.
really love him. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always heard good things about it. I just never heard him until right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, which is
Wow.
like crazy.
The next time you feel like killing yourself, throw a record on.
Mike, can you turn it back up?
The next time you want to relive your childhood.
Yeah, next
again,
time I want to relive my childhood. I need to go see Iron Maiden and Judas Priest.
Yeah.
breaking
There
the
you go.
law, breaking.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man, my favorite thing about the way he answers, he gets these very in depth.
Yeah,
like,
I love
it's
it.
good.
It's
Like,
great.
there's strong reasons as to
Yeah.
why.
I
Yes.
told you, brother, we're going to go deep.
I love
Yeah.
it.
We're going to go deep.
Okay, song that reminds you of love.
Song that, the Ramones, I Want You Around.
Ah,
Wow.
Because it's such a cool, basic, lyrically, it's very cool and very basic. But it says it in a way that I would say it. I'm not a overly romantic guy. I'm not a gifted orator or anything. And if I wrote a love song, it would be something like that. You
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
Not like,
yeah.
I love you, I want to be with you forever. No. I want you around.
I want you around.
I want
Yeah,
you
well,
around.
I say it
Yeah.
a lot.
Just
yeah.
stick around. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, for someone
I love that
that's
simplicity.
yeah,
Yep.
and for someone that's not sentimental, that is actually like a huge
That's
thing.
a huge
Yep.
thing.
I enjoy
Yeah.
your presence.
Yeah, I want you
Yeah.
around. That's a big thing.
God, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I
My
mean,
wife will tell you I'm not very romantic. In fact, when I proposed to my wife, we were at a party in San Francisco, and I said, we should just go get married. And she was like, what? I go, yeah, let's go to Vegas and get married.
yeah.
We literally booked flights, flew here to Vegas, went to the S&M Chapel about a mile and a half from here. No, I don't mean sadomasochism. It don't mean that.
Yeah.
No, it means special memory.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
a
so
special
the-
memory
yeah.
chapel. Yeah, it's not sadomasochist.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, cool.
We booked a flight, flew here, went through this whole ordeal, got everything together, and got married at the chapel about a mile from here. We
Wow.
drove by there today and took pictures out front again.
Wow.
But like that's my idea of being romantic and
That's
sentimental.
sweet, though.
we
That's
should just
sweet.
get married.
Yeah, yeah.
But you meant it.
Yep.
That was you getting down on your knee.
And we've been married 19 years.
Wow.
19 years. That's
19
good.
years.
Amazing.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's not a small
Do
thing.
you love love?
I do.
Yeah,
I
me
do.
too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do. I
you're
do.
just not like overly like.
No, not at all. But to me, anyway, it's what really attracted me early on to the punk and hardcore scene.
Really?
Yeah. Because the
Interesting.
metal scene really is very conservative.
Yeah.
You know? In a lot of ways, it's very conservative.
For
like,
sure.
you ain't a metalhead, fuck you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But punk and hardcore accepted everybody. Everybody was welcome, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody could come in. There's a love there, you know what I mean? That I really, from the first time I went to a punk show and a hardcore show, I was like, fuck yeah, these
Yeah.
kids know what's going on.
You see it in the photos. I
Yep.
mean, the diversity, the
Yeah.
different type of style. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's
Like through the
so
through
inspiring.
like the photos of like these old punk and hardcore photos, like you could just see the connection of everybody there.
Yep.
You could see like this thing that just
Yeah.
like it's like there, and it just seems so like I guess that's what
They
caught my
found their
attention, too.
family in a
it
way,
just-
some
yeah,
people,
it was
you know.
very 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 freeing.
Yep.
You know, it was the most. I mean, when when I found punk rock, it was the most. Like I felt like open-minded thing that I had like walked into. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like as a
Yep.
black kid, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
Same.
as you as a brown
Yeah.
kid,
Yep.
it
we
just-
had such a diverse crowd from the early days too, right?
Yeah.
We had kids in the scene that were gay. Everyone knew they were gay.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
got no
Yeah.
shit. They got treated no different than anybody else. you'd have to take a fucking elbow in the pit, whether you were gay,
Yeah.
black, brown,
whatever.
white. You had to take an elbow and go home with fucking Doc Martin footprints on your back. But you got treated no different,
Yeah.
and you got treated with the same love and
Yes.
respect that everybody else. If you went down on the floor, everybody picked you
Everybody
up.
picks you up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I loved about the scene. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's love in the punk and hardcore scene that don't exist in any other style of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really don't exist like that
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Well,
You go to pop concerts, metal concerts, whatever. There's no other style of music where everyone's just kind of celebrating us. We're celebrating our scene.
Yeah.
It's our bands. It's us playing music. There ain't no difference between the guys playing
Yeah.
and the guys in the audience. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Man.
It's so unique and different from everything else, and that's what made it special. And that's why, that's why I'm here giving tours.
Yeah.
Like that's I try to teach people that when I bring them through. I don't bring them through and tell them about, how I almost, I don't tell them about the wild stories
Yeah.
from my time in the Ramones. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I just saw a million of these stories go through your head. And you were like,
I just got a quick little burst there. But I try to teach them about the history of punk rock and hardcore,
The energy.
and why
Yeah.
it was such an important, vital scene. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that I really hope does not get lost in the newer generations coming up in the punk and the hardcore scenes. That the important thing is all of us together.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the
that is the
important
important
I
thing.
think
Yeah.
it's still going strong.
yeah, that's what. It's so about you explaining like those early days of it, like where you're like we accepted everybody, and then like when I started going to the shows, obviously we didn't come up in the same scene or at the
Yep.
same time, but to hear that and then it's like, man, that's why I got in. That's
Yep.
what I felt like. I felt what everything you said is why I walked into the building and was
Yep.
like, yeah, this is cool.
I can remember the first time I fell in a pit and feeling the arms
Yeah.
picking
people
me, and
lift
you're
you
like,
up.
What? Like,
Yeah.
it's a religious
you get a rush.
experience.
You get a
almost.
rush
Yeah.
of energy as soon as when you feel people picking you up, because it's scary. You get dropped in the pit,
Oh.
and all of a sudden, like
Oh,
you're getting
yeah.
stepped on and stuff, and then you feel people picking you up. It's like, yeah,
Because
Yeah.
that circle don't stop.
yeah, it don't. That's right.
Yeah,
it
that
don't
circle
stop.
No.
It don't stop.
Wow,
Oh, man.
This is great. Okay, so what's your favorite workout / or like hype song that hypes you?
Metallica Battery.
Oh,
yeah.
dude.
So-
Wow.
So it's been a little while since I've been since I've gone running or been to the gym. It's been a little while, but this on my playlist for the gym. This is always the first song.
Oh yeah.
Can I tell you guys a Metallica story?
Please,
Go-
yes.
Of course.
All right. This is I think this is all traceable information. Okay. So Ramones retirement tour 1996, we played Lollapalooza. Did we talk about that earlier?
Arizona,
we
was
did a little
that?
bit, yeah.
Okay. So Metallica and Soundgarden were the headliners on that tour.
Come on.
I know,
dude.
right?
Yeah.
Metallica, Soundgarden, Rancid, Ramones.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go.
Yeah. So so on that tour, Johnny Ramone and Kirk Hammett got to be buddies.
Wow.
They were both high-end movie
Yeah.
poster collectors. And between the two of them, they owned some of the rarest posters
Yeah,
in
Kirk's
the world.
got some crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, old horror.
So
stuff,
him
yeah.
and Johnny really bonded over that, got to be buddies. Lollapalooza ends. I go home. The Ramones are done. I started a family. My boy was born in 1997, a year after the Ramones retired. I got on a family hard,
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
1998, ended 98 into 99. So probably sometime in mid 1999, Johnny Ramone calls me up and he says, I got some good news for you. I go, what's up? He said, Metallica wants you to play bass for them. I said, I go, really? He goes, yeah. He said, it's not an audition. They already saw you play on Lollapalooza. They know what you could do. They know you're a big fan. You just got to fly out there. A couple of months earlier, my oldest boy had been diagnosed with autism. So I said to John, I was like, John, listen, I really appreciate it, and much love and respect to Metallica, but I can't do it. And he was like, what? I said, my kid was just diagnosed with autism. I don't even know what the fuck that means.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
back then it wasn't all the information that we have now.
we have
You know what I
now,
mean?
yeah.
I didn't even know what the fuck that meant. So Johnny got really upset, and he was like, you're out of your fucking mind. You can hire the best doctors, blah, blah, this and that. He started yelling at me. I had a lot of love and respect for John, and I always took his opinion really seriously because he had been around. He'd been through a lot of shit, so I really trusted him. So I let him vent for a second. The other thing you have to keep in mind is while I was with the Ramones, they paid me $350 a week. I made more money as a machine gunner in the Marine Corps than I did playing bass for the Ramones.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, I made $500, and then on the last year, I made $700. But for most of my time with the Ramones, I got paid $350 a week. That always bothered John because after the band retired, I was not in a great financial spot, and he kind of regretted that.
Yeah.
That's why I think he reacted the way he did, you know?
Yeah.
So I let him vent, and I thought about it, and I said, I'll tell you what. I'm going to make an appointment to go see my son's doctor. I'll explain the situation to him, and I'll see what the doctor says. And John was like, all right. He was like, all right, call me back. Let me know. I made an appointment with my boy's doctor, and little Filipino guy. He was a really fucking funny dude, man. He was just a cool guy.
Yeah.
So I went in and I was like, "Hey doc, listen, I got an offer for a job that will require me to travel a lot." And he was like, "Okay, what do you be doing?" I said, "Well, I actually got offered to play bass for a really famous band." He was like, "What band?" And I was like, "Metallica." And he was like, "Okay." I said, it's going to pay real good, and it'll be, I can really provide for my family, and it'll be life-changing,
Yeah.
So he listened to me talk, and I got through the whole thing, and he said, "Mr. Ward, when you brought your son in, you asked me what you had to do to give him the best shot at being the best that he could be. And I told you he has to live a very stable life. He has to sleep in the same bed, wake up at the same time, eat his meals at the same time, go to school, and he needs you to be there for it. He needs you to be there for it." He's like, "It's not lost on me who Metallica is. I know who Metallica is."
Yeah, yeah.
He was like, "They're a very big band, and I'm sure they're going to pay you a lot of money. But if you really want to give your son the best shot, you'll have to stay home with him."
Wow.
So for me, it wasn't that big of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had already played with the Ramones. Being in Metallica would have been great for the money, but it wouldn't have beat being in the Ramones.
Yeah.
But I was a big Metallica fan. I could play any song all the way up to "Injustice for All."
Wow.
Like I was already well versed
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Metallica.
yeah.
Motor
right?
breath? You got motor breath?
Say again?
Motor breath?
Oh yeah, I love all
my
of that
favorite
stuff.
one.
Man.
Sorry.
I love that
Motor
stuff.
Breath's good. I love that song.
So I called John up, and I was like, "John, listen, there's no way. I can't do it." And he was like, "CJ, you're out of your mind. They're going to give you $1 million to sign the contract. It's $1 million sign-on bonus. If you fly out there right now, today, you're going to go to a press conference with them within the next few days where they're going to film you them handing you the check and you signing the contract. It's $1 million." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, $1 million would be great, but I don't know what that means for my kid long term." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I fucking turned him down.
Yeah.
I just turned him down, cold, outright.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't tell this story so everybody be like, "What a great guy," blah, blah, blah. But I tell this story because I know there's a lot of parents with autistic kids who are just don't know what to expect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The kid gets diagnosed and they're like, oh my God, what's this going to be like, you know? So I tell the story to get people to understand the commitment that you have to have
Yeah.
to give your autistic kid the best shot that they're going to get.
Yep.
So if you saw my kid now, he works a full-time job, has his own apartment,
Hell
got
yeah.
a pretty girlfriend, lives a good life.
Worth
I'm
it.
not saying this because I turned down Metallica, but I don't know he would have had the best shot that he got with me being there hand over hand
over-
every day,
yeah.
doing the right thing
Yeah.
by him, right?
Yeah.
Doing the right thing sometimes pays more than $1 million check does,
Man.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm the only person in the world that could say they turned down Metallica.
Hell yeah.
Ain't not another fucking person walking on this planet that can say they turned down Metallica,
Yeah.
right? But but seriously, I did it for my boy and I did it for myself because it would have been it would have been hard to reconcile with myself later on
Yeah.
if it didn't work out like it did for
work
him.
out.
That money
You know what I
wouldn't
mean?
mean shit.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
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 It's like
Yeah.
you got a
Wow.
million, but like
Yep.
your son.
I
Yeah.
told you we're gonna go deep.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
said it.
Yeah.
I
I
warned
love
you
it.
guys.
Great. This is amazing.
This is amazing.
God,
Yeah.
my
No,
heart's
this
going,
is
dude.
great. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
That was beautiful. Damn. How do we?
How do we follow that up?
Yeah.
I know how.
All right.
Okay. Your Desert Island album.
Yeah, first Ramones record.
Okay.
Man.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Fuck
Yeah.
yeah, dude.
That's a great one.
I can honestly say, like, if I had to listen to one album over and over, and not because of the memories of my time with the band, just because that album to me is just flawless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
From
you
beginning
had
to
something
end.
with them before you were even in the band.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. That's the other thing. I mean, I was a huge fan before I was ever in the band. In fact, when I went to the audition, like I told you before, I was still in the Marine
Marines,
Corps.
yeah.
I went down just to be able to meet the band. When I had a friend call me up. He's like, "Yo, the Ramones are auditioning bass players tonight at SIR Studio in Manhattan."
Wow.
I was like, I got to be back on bass in a couple days, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck am I talking about? I could go meet the Ramones." I went down just to meet them. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Wow.
Like literally.
Yeah.
I love the band so much. I was like, this is my opportunity to meet the Ramones. Fuck it, I'm gonna go meet them. That's why I tell my kids now: show up,
Show up.
show up.
Like I
Sometime-
should have to the Palladium that night. And I blew it.
Showing up sometimes is enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's enough.
You know,
Wait,
there's
so you were. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. So you were going to meet them and then happened to audition.
No,
Oh,
they were
okay.
holding auditions, but I just looked at it as an opportunity to go meet them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay.
I didn't go down thinking I'm going to be the bass player for the Ramones. I went down thinking I'm going to fucking get to meet the Ramones.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But Johnny said from the first time I walked in, he knew it was me.
Damn.
And they auditioned. I've heard different numbers. I heard 40, I heard 70, but they auditioned better than 30 people for the gig. And they auditioned some other guys from other bands. Like one dude had played with Billy Idol, one dude had played with the Cult. Like they auditioned
Yeah.
dudes with resumes and all of that. I was nobody.
Yeah.
Literally, I was nobody. I just walked in to meet the band. But Johnny said there was something about me, and I understood after a while. Johnny went to military school when he was a kid. So I was still in the Marine Corps. So I walked in, I had military bearing. I was a Marine. I wasn't
Yeah.
fucking intimidated. I just went in, I walked right over to John. I was like, "Hey, John, Chris Ward, pleasure to meet you, man. Big fan." You know? Because I didn't have no expectations, but I wasn't going to go in and go, "Hi." You know what I mean? I walked right up. I was like, "John, Chris Ward, great to meet you." I didn't care. I was in the fucking Marine Corps. I didn't think I was going to get the gig. I just went in to meet him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about just showing up, there's a famous photo of Muhammad Ali where he's like sort of leaning. And I heard that the guy who took that photo, he wasn't even a photographer. He just happened to be there with a camera. It happened. He snapped it. It became this iconic photo.
Yeah.
But he said it was just because he showed up. He was just there.
Yep.
So you never
And
know
he
what
took one of the
happens,
most
you know?
iconic photos
Yeah.
of one of the most iconic
Yeah,
people of
Yeah.
So
the
you just
20th
never know.
century.
Showing up is
Yep.
half of it, maybe
Yeah.
more.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I try to impress that upon kids, even when I give tours. I use that as an example. I'm like, show up. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Don't be scared. You know, if there's something that you see an opportunity, recognizing opportunity is one of the biggest things you got to be able to do in life. So few opportunities will come your way, but if you can learn to recognize them and not be afraid to jump in, you gain so much confidence and you get so much further when your mind operates that way, you know? It sounds really simple in saying it, but in practice it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really
That's
not.
scary and all
Because
that,
it
you know?
happens to me like even here, like the first time I ran into Roger and Vinny from
Agnostic
Front. I was at their shows at CBGB's. I played the same scene as they did. You know, I fucking was kind of, we were in the same orbit for years, but I never met them. And when I saw them here, like for a moment, I was intimidated. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to walk up. And then I was like, what the fuck, man? We're in our house. We're from the same scene. I just walked over to Roger and I was like, hey, man, CJ Ramon, fucking pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Been a fan for a long time. Vinny, hey, in fact, here when I do the tours with the New York hardcore scene, I always say there's one band that came through New York and changed our scene forever, and that's the band Brains.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Band
Yep.
Brains changed
Yep.
our scene forever, right? So, you know, I'm saying that as a fan and from the audience and stuff, but you never know if your perception of it is the same as everybody else's. So I said to Roger, I was like, hey, brother, do me a favor. Come into the DC room with me and talk about the Bad Brains. Because I wanted to see if Roger remembered it the same way. So he came into the DC room with me, and he walked up to the wall where they have the big picture,
HR,
HR,
yeah.
and he put his hand on the wall. He said, these guys changed everything. And I was like,
Yeah, dude.
because that's exactly what I say on my tours, you know what I mean? And it was cool, like, to have that little moment there with Roger. But
Yeah.
it's, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you know, I see people come in and they're like afraid to ask for an autograph. I'm like, don't fucking be afraid. You want an autograph? Come over here.
Yeah,
we go into
you
the
want
jam room upstairs where they have all the guitars and
Yeah.
everyone's standing with their hands in their pockets. I'm like, you can hold fucking Joan Jett's guitar while you're standing there with your hands in your pockets.
Yeah.
Grab that fucking thing off the wall and play it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You just got to see those opportunities when they come up, even little things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in life in general, opportunities present themselves, but you got to have the
That fucking-
wherewithal
yeah.
to see it, and you got to have the balls to step up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
You fucking heard it
You
here.
heard it here. All right, CJ, we are down to our last question.
Yeah.
Our last question is, what is your guilty pleasure
Oh
song?
Lord, God!
I can't wait for this.
I'm gonna drop down a whole bunch of points on people's cool scale right now. Madonna,
I love
La
this
Isla
song.
Bonita. I like anything with a
Dude.
Latin rhythm, brother.
Yeah.
I go deep on Latin music. I really love Latin music.
I love this song.
And this song is so a guilty
Toby
pleasure.
Morse also loves Madonna big time. He's got Toby Morse got Madonna tattooed on him. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
There's a
my-
great version of her doing this with Eugene Hutz from Gogol Bordello.
Oh, really?
Somewhere, yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, he's a punk rocker.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
cool, man.
I got to check that out. Yeah.
Wow.
Latin beat stuff. Anything with Latin beat, I dig.
That should really.
I love that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. Funk, like
Yeah.
I really dig all that stuff.
I mean, you grew up in New York, so you got to hear like
Yeah.
Everything, man.
just everything. You know,
Dude, the birth of hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, I saw all that stuff happen.
Yeah.
You know, and for everybody in New York, to us, hip hop was the new music of the streets when it started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was like a whole musical movement that happened in New York before anywhere else. I know that's debatable. I get it. I understand it's debatable. But like I told you, I'm
but
from
the way
Hol-
it happened in New York.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm from Hollis, Queens. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That was like for hip hop in New York, that was really ground zero. You know what I mean? It was so cool to watch all of that happen, man.
Yeah.
And as a spectator, I'm not saying I was a contributor or I was part of the scene and nothing. Just as a spectator, to watch that whole scene happen was cool as heck, because it's the first scene that I watched happen from birth to becoming the biggest scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because punk rock started before I was, you know, that really, the Ramones and all that kind of predates me. It already was off the ground when I first started listening to all that stuff.
Yeah.
But hip hop
You saw
was
the
the first
spark.
scene that
Yeah.
I saw from from the first colonel
And how many people
to
can say
taking
that?
over everything.
How many people can say that?
Yeah.
Man, there's something very special about
It's America's
New York.
biggest export now.
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's something special about New York to me. I got to perform in New York for the first time, and doing comedy out there, I was like, well, I like doing comedy here, and I think it was because, like, I realized something as I'm like riding the subway and stuff. I'm like, oh, everybody's on the subway.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no matter what status you are, like
Yeah.
CEO,
like if you got money,
everybody,
if
yeah.
you don't have money,
Yep.
like everyone in between, everyone's around each other. So nothing I was saying on stage as a comedian was that crazy because
Yep.
it's like we're around like this all the time, and,
Yeah.
and so many different people. I went over around like Astoria and
Yep.
stuff like that, and there's a lot. I didn't know there was a lot of Greek people
Yeah.
over there and stuff,
Yep.
and just learning this like different, and then Puerto Ricans and the Bronx and stuff.
Yep.
I just didn't know. I was like, whoa, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then everybody's on the subway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
special about that.
So when I was real young, we lived in Queens, right? Our neighborhood was predominantly Puerto Rican, Filipino, black, and white. Like that was our whole neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And wherever you were hanging out in the middle of the day, like that's where you went to eat. Right, so I grew up eating all kinds of fucking
Yeah.
wild food. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in this neighborhood that was so culturally mixed. It was such a cool experience to be a kid and grow up that way. I moved out to Long Island, and it was a different thing. I moved out to Long Island, and okay, this is the white neighborhood, this is the black neighborhood, this is the Latino neighborhood. It was very divided. Wow. So, the first school that I went to, Catholic school. When I got into grade school, I got there. I didn't know anybody. I was new to the school, and this girl starts paying me some attention. So I was like, all right, good-looking girl, she's like, hey, you want to come over my house? I go, yeah, sure, I'll come over your house, no problem. She gives me her address. I don't tell my mom and dad nothing, of course. I get on my bike, and I start riding over to her house. And I ride into a neighborhood, and there's a group of kids standing on the corner, and I hear, white boy, where you going? And I look, and there's like 5 fucking big dudes chasing me. I was pedaling my ass off. I don't even know where I am in the neighborhood. I'm holding a piece of paper in my hand, looking at the address.
Yeah.
I zoom up her driveway into the backyard. I get into her backyard, and her father comes out. I guess he was like, who the fuck is this guy? He comes out into the backyard, big giant white guy, and he comes out, and he's like, who are you? I go, I'm here to see Barbara. And he turns around just as those kids run up the driveway. He's like, what do you want? And they're like, why you letting that white boy in our neighborhood? And he's like, get the fuck out of here, So, because Barbara was a mulatto girl. Her mom was black. Her dad was white. To me, it didn't mean nothing because I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody fucking said nothing about that. I never heard anything like that. But I learned real quick. Like you don't want to. You dating a black girl. You better be ready to fucking throw hands or pedal real fast. You know what I mean? That's the only way that's gonna happen. But it was. It was wild, man, to get used to that type of living.
Culture
Like it was
shock,
like the lines are drawn, and you better. But the best thing about the whole thing, like me and that gal stayed friends, went to the prom together up at the high school. She turned out to be one of my good friends long term. It was. I really missed living in the old neighborhood. I really missed living in Queens.
Yeah.
Because it was so much simpler. Like, it didn't matter. Nobody fucking cared, you know what I mean? We were over at Dante, the Filipino kid's house. His mom would make some crazy fucking Filipino dish. I'd go and be like, man, it smells like fish heads in here, but it tastes like fucking chicken.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, every house we ate at, it was some other
Awesome. Yeah.
banging meal, And that's how I grew up, you know what I mean? I'm glad I had that experience.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had that experience because I really learned a lot for it, and it served me well, especially later on when I was in the Marine Corps. A lot of the guys I hung out with and stuff really served me well.
Yeah. Touring the world.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
happy with this experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
This is
man.
amazing. Did you
Yeah.
have fun with us?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I hope you guys got a good.
No,
Oh, I
this
think
is
it's
this
good
is
show
amazing.
out of that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
it's
you.
really an honor, man.
Yeah,
Thank you for
truly,
doing
true
it, man.
honor here, and
Yeah.
thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you
yeah.
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you guys.
That's it. We'll see you guys later.
Yes.
Bye.
Lesser known characters.